You don't know me, but my name's Si. I'm just the O'Hare delivery guy. But it seems like trees might be worth a try. So I say, let it.
You are grounded, 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 grounded. For 98346539485348759 years. Go to your room right fucking now.
My name is Dan.
And my name's Rose.
Our son Wesley kinda glows. And that's not good, so we suppose we should let it.
You are grounded, 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 grounded. For 98346539485348759 years. Go to your room right fucking now.
Let it.
You are grounded, 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 grounded. For 98346539485348759 years. Go to your room right fucking now.
Let it.
You are grounded, 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 grounded. For 98346539485348759 years. Go to your room right fucking now.
You can't reap what you don't sow. Plant a seed inside the earth. Just one way to know its worth. Let's celebrate the world's rebirth. We say let it.
You are grounded, 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 grounded. For 98346539485348759 years. Go to your room right fucking now.
My name's Marie, and I am 3. I would really like to see a tree. La 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 lee. I say let it.
You are grounded, 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 grounded. For 98346539485348759 years. Go to your room right fucking now.
I'm Grammy Norma, I'm old and I've got gray hair. But I remember when trees were everywhere and no one had to pay for air. So I say, let it.
You are grounded, 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 grounded. For 98346539485348759 years. Go to your room right fucking now. You are grounded, 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 grounded. For 98346539485348759 years. Go to your room right fucking now. You are grounded, 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 grounded. For 98346539485348759 years. Go to your room right fucking now.
Like it did so long ago. It's just one tiny seed, but it's all we really need. It's time to change the life we lead. Time to let it.
You are grounded, 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 grounded. For 98346539485348759 years. Go to your room right fucking now.
My name's O'Hare, I'm one of you. I live here in
10th and 8ville too. The things you say just might be true. It could be time to start anew and maybe change my point of view. Nah, I say let it. Let it. Let it. Let it shrivel up and come on, who's with me, huh?
Nobody.
You greedy dirtbag!